Hi, welcome again to SBR.TV. I'm Peter Loshak. SBR moderator Justin Seven and I just got finished talking a little bit about Week 4 in college football, and now we're going to get into Week 3 in the NFL. So, Justin, are you ready to talk NFL? Justin, you there?
Hey, Peter.
Okay, good. First thing, anything notable that you want to mention about last week? I know we talked about Minnesota and Detroit, and I said I like Minnesota -10, and you endorsed that, which I think was probably correct. So did you see anything that we should think about from last week that you found interesting?
Well, aside from losing, I found it very interesting, the Dolphins-Colts game. Colts won the game by 4, but it was very interesting from a statistical point of view, in that there were only a couple things. First, there was only 8 possessions a team. Normally you have 12 possessions. So by Miami running the ball, basically the teams played 10 minutes in the third quarter and just quit the game. It's just over. 2/3 of a game played and they're done. The other thing that was interesting about it, Miami had 45 minutes of possession. I think it's the first time a team has lost in 30 years when they've dominated possession that badly.
Right, there's been a lot of talk about that. So what might we want to take from that game to shed light on future line value maybe? I mean, that stat of 50 points and only 16 possessions, that's a bit eye-popping. I wonder what do you think it might possibly indicate?
I think neither team plays defense, so I'd be inclined to bet over against either team.
Okay, that's interesting. I may revisit this game with you later on in the year when you're using your stat model and ask about the impact of this one game on your model's forecasting. We'll see. All right, so let's get into the games that I wanted to ask you about this week. This week I actually didn't see a whole lot in the NFL that I really liked. I've had a pretty good football season so far, and I usually do find at least 1 or 2 games on the card that I'm excited to talk about and everything. But this week in the NFL, I haven't really found too much. There are 2 games that I have leans on, and I want to get your takes on them. The first one is Houston -3.5 at home over Jacksonville. Now, I'll just go over some of the major points of the game to start. First of all, Houston, of course, had high expectations for this year, but they got off to a bit of a rocky start. Quarterback Matt Schaub had a bit of an ankle injury that slowed him in their opening loss to the Jets, who were very ready to go, and Houston didn't seem quite as prepared. But he looked much better last week, as did the team as a whole. Jacksonville is struggling in many ways. Of course, last week on defense they were awful. Kurt Warner was 24 for 26, and they never sacked him. Jacksonville's offensive line also looks a little questionable. They've got a few injuries as well as a few rookie starters there. So I'm looking for Houston to win, if not in a blowout, then reasonably comfortably. So I'm thinking about taking Houston -3.5 or maybe buying them down to the 3. What do you think about that?
I think Houston is like the I think Houston is the Dr. Heckle.
It's Jekyll and Hyde.
I think Houston is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team of the year. They looked great. Their offense looked reasonably good last week. But if you look at their whole year, their first week they scored 7 points, and that wasn't even offense. That was a defensive fumble return. So 34 points of total offense in 2 weeks. That's very average. The thing I think is more interesting, though, is the total on this game. I mean, I don't like taking Houston -3.5. I don't have a strong opinion of the way, but I don't think there's value there. But you look at the total on this game. The total is at 47. A lot of the points Houston gave up were a little bit fluky. If you look at last week, they gave up a 57-yard touchdown run, a 69-yard pass, and another 91-yard touchdown run. So they gave up over 200 yards of offense on 3 plays with their break but don't bend approach, which is a little bit fluky. I mean, typically you'll have 1 big play, sometimes even 2, but not 3. And this is inflating the totals for Houston games. You also look at their defensive score. You get about 1 defensive score, every 3 or 4 games typically for a team. So you have, 28 extra phantom points that just appeared when 7 or 10 is more typical, for a team. So I think the value here is actually playing under 47.
Really, that's interesting because the Texans are normally thought of as a pretty strong over team. The totals are usually high. They have a big pass-oriented offense, and they're usually not so great on D. I mean, I think that they were 10-6 to the over last year, and 2 years ago they were 9-6-1 to the over, and their overs tend to also come at the beginning of the year as well. But you think there are signs that the under, I mean, I know it's very early on in the year, but that the under might actually be a better play.
Yes, I'm not sold on Houston's offense or that their defense is too weak.
Well, what you're saying is actually making me like Houston a bit more now. You're sort of saying that their D might be a bit better than they've shown statistically so far, and I think that's true. And I think that the relative struggles on offense in the first 2 weeks were a bit of an illusion. You know, Schaub did have a bum ankle in the first weeks that's now getting better, and Steve Slayton might return to last year's form. So I'm actually liking Houston a bit more now after talking with you. So thanks. That's what these conversations are for. All right, and then the second game that I want to talk about, which is another game I'm leaning towards. I'm not quite sure how to think about it yet, but I'm leaning towards it, is Chicago -1 on the road at Seattle. Now, again, just to summarize this one, Chicago, of course, has Jay Cutler as their new quarterback. The Bears lost their opener, but they looked like they were coming together a lot better last week when they beat Pittsburgh, which is clearly a top NFL team. Seattle, of course, is having a bunch of problems. Quarterback Matt Hasselbeck was hurt last game. They're not sure if he'll play in this one or not. If not, Seneca Wallace is the backup, who should be fine. I think I'd actually prefer a maybe injured Hasselbeck playing over Wallace. But Seattle, whatever happens to quarterback, Seattle is maybe having bigger problems in other areas. On defense, they got gashed last week on their run game, and they've got a bunch of injuries on defense in general. So it should definitely be easier this week for the Bears running back Matt Forte than it was for him last week against Pittsburgh. So I'm looking at Chicago as maybe having value just to get a win here. What do you think about that game?
I have no strong opinion on that. Cutler had a good game last week, but if you look at his season-long performance, and I'd rather look at someone throughout the course of the whole season than just his most recent game. Season-long, he's got 3 touchdowns and 4 picks. He's nothing special at Chicago yet. Maybe he'll come along later, but I'm not convinced that Chicago's a better team yet.
Okay, well, I think I might take them. I'll wait a little bit, though, to check the late info and line movement. We'll see. Are there any other Week 3 games that you're liking or anything that caught your eye for some reason?
Well, bad teams always catch my eye. And this week's bad team of the week that I like is Cleveland. Cleveland, they're getting 13, 13.5. You might even see 14 on game day. There's 2 things that make me like them. First, they have a -4 turnover differential. You know, rule of thumb, a turnover in NFL is worth about 3.5 points. Fumbles are extremely random. Interceptions are somewhat random. So if you put them at -4, basically they look 14 points worse than they are for the year. So it's, 7 points a game is how bad the gods of luck have screwed them just on turnovers. Now, the second thing I want you to look at is third down conversions. This is another less well-known randomizer factor.
Yeah,
the best team in the league might have a 50% third down conversion rate. Worst team is probably about 30%. And this is if, like Lions last year were 30%. If you look at Cleveland, they're at 23% on the year. And I don't think that they're going to be the league's worst offensive team. One single third down conversion is worth, I'm going to estimate, about 2.5 points. Not quite as much as a turnover, but close. So between the bad luck on third down conversions, bad luck on turnovers, I think Cleveland, if you're just using pure stats without looking at what's happening, they're going to be under-evaluated by maybe 9 or 10 points. So I definitely like Cleveland in this matchup.
Well, Baltimore looks very good to me with their 3-headed rushing attack. I see what you're saying, though. That's interesting. Cleveland, though, I'm just concerned. Cleveland might have some big problems on offense. I mean, running back Jamal Lewis is questionable with a hamstring injury, and they don't really have much behind him, and quarterback Brady Quinn has looked very iffy so far. So I don't know. I think I'd take Baltimore if I had to take a side in this game, but, hey, no, who knows? You're the sharp, We'll see. I don't know. But, all right, so what's your general strategy going to be for this upcoming week? Still mostly teasers and half-times?
Oh, I like under on the Houston game. I like Browns plus 13. I'm always looking to play teasers, but I don't generally want to play teasers until game day. The reason why is, the lines move around a lot. And if you take a team that's plus 2 and you tease it to plus 8, and it moves to, plus 3, you look like a chump when you're holding this teaser that's teased to plus 8. If you do it if you play your teasers the hour before game time, though, you don't get screwed up like that.
Right, because when you're playing teasers systemically, you actually want to get as sharp lines as possible.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's about it. At this point, we're starting to look forward to Week 5, which should be exciting. I'm really looking forward to that, Justin, because that's when we can start using same-season stats to get a better read on how teams should be rated currently, and we can start using your model a little bit to shed some light on line value. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Week 5 is actually coming up in college next week. So thanks again. Thanks once again, Justin.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. right, SBR, there you go. Week 3 NFL. I'm liking Houston -3.5 and maybe Chicago -1. Justin 7 doesn't endorse either one of those, which is fine. Justin says he's leaning towards Houston under 47 and Cleveland +13. I don't endorse either of those, and in fact probably mildly disagree with both of them, but we'll see how it turns out. You should probably take his advice over mine. So that's about it. Of course, SBRforum.com is where you can go to talk about all this and more. For SBR.TV, I'm Peter Loshak.